Austin's been one of the fastest growing cities in the country for years now, maybe even decades. And some people that end up relocating here end up regretting where they landed and they move across town in a year or two. This video, we dive in on all the common mistakes that I've seen people make in the past and how you can avoid making those so you make a smart move, not just a move. Now, I've worked with dozens of families and individuals that have relocated here and they absolutely love it, but that's because we had a plan ahead of time. And some people that didn't reach out to me end up reaching out to me after they land here and wanting to relocate, whether they want to move to a different suburb or a different neighborhood within Austin. We need to make sure that you come with a solid strategy and you explore the areas that best suit your lifestyle and your needs before you fall in love with the house. Most people that have those types of regrets don't regret moving here in the first place, they regret how they moved. So this video is gonna save you time, frustration, and a lot of money. I'm Justin Rossi and I was born and raised here in the city of Austin in Central Texas. So I know the area like the back of my hand. I know the ins and outs of all the different neighborhoods, all the different suburbs, and all the different communities. And I make these videos to help people thinking about relocating just like you. So don't hesitate to reach out. I actually do want to hear from you. I'll always tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and even the weird of the great city of Austin, Texas. So the first common mistake that I see people make is not actually visiting before they make a move. They fall in love with Zilker Park in Barton Springs, they fall in love with the music scene, but they end up in a suburb 45 minutes away from everything they loved about the city, and then they're upset that they're not experiencing the Austin they thought they were going to. Now, I joke about it all the time, but I swear there's at least 15 to 20 different Austins in Austin. So I highly recommend that you talk to somebody who can kind of be your local expert, your local guide. Hi, that's me. Or if it's not me, at least find somebody that can help. So you can make sure to explore the areas that best suit your needs and your lifestyle. And we can really narrow in the search, not just on the perfect home finishes, but on the areas that really fit your lifestyle. Now, once we have an area locked in, we can always do virtual walkthroughs so you don't have to come to Austin every single time that you want to go see a house. I'll do detailed walkthroughs for all of my clients, and not just on the house, but we'll go see the neighborhood and I'll do drive-throughs and things like that. But at least make sure that you like the area in person before you fall in love with the house and then get here and realize that you didn't like the area that the house is in, because you can't change that. So speaking about visiting before you actually decide on where you want to live in Austin, I see a lot of people choose the wrong neighborhoods, and that kind of goes hand in hand, but it's a little bit separate at the same time. Austin is big and all the different areas aren't really one size fits all. Cedar Park is much different than Buda, where I'm at downtown in Buda on Main Street right now. Buda's not Dripping Springs. The Lakeside Estates over in, the Westlake Hills or in Steiner Ranch aren't the same as East Austin or downtown. Some people wanted walkability and they've seen Instagram and they've visited for a concert and they decided that they wanted to live in the Austin area, thinking that they would get that kind of music scene and walkability and restaurants, but they decided to choose an area that was 45 minutes away from it all, and they have that regret that we talked about. Other people, in juxtaposition, decided to move to the downtown area because they fell in love with it for the same reasons, but then once they actually lived here, they decided they want more space, they want more home for their money, they want a quieter atmosphere and more of a small town vibe. So for example, Cedar Park offers good schools, a little bit more of a quieter suburban type feel, but it's a commute that you have to make sure that you're willing to make that concession because it is far removed from the city center. And if you work in downtown Austin, the Cedar Park commute on 183 down to Austin can really vary depending on if you catch it during rush hour or you can be flexible in your work hours. Buda, where I'm at now, has a really cool, quaint, small town charm. I'm actually here on Main Street right now in a little park, but it is a little bit of a commute to the city center, or especially to North Austin if you're working at some of the tech companies up a little bit further north of the river in Austin. You just gotta time your commute right, but this town is one of my favorite towns. It's just outside of Austin. It's one exit away from my neighborhood in South Austin, and it's really just got that small town Texas charm. Or East Austin is super hip, super trendy. It's got lots of live music venues and coffee shops and restaurants. It's fairly walkable, probably one of the more walkable places in the city of Austin, but You're gonna pay for it because the demand is high, it's pricey, and the population's considerably more dense than other areas. If you wanna know the real differences of all the different options across the greater Austin area, that's exactly why I make these videos, so that I can connect with and talk to people just like you. Now, choosing the wrong neighborhood is a great segue into our next common regret, which is really underestimating commute times, right? So when you look at a map and you go to Google Maps and you say, oh, I wanna live in downtown Buda, but I need to commute to downtown Austin, depending on the time of the day, it could say that it's gonna take you 20 minutes. But if you catch it during rush hour, you're looking at maybe closer to an hour, maybe even an hour and a half if there's a wreck. Even going just a few miles on I-35 can feel like you're just crawling down the road depending on the time of day. Now that said, traffic is completely relative, right? So if you're coming from a place like Los Angeles or New York, when you hear locals talk about the Austin traffic being really, really bad, you might actually kind of laugh at them because it's subjective, right? It's really not that bad compared to areas like that. But if you're coming from a small town and a small state with not a lot of congestion, then it might seem pretty bad. So a pro tip when it comes to commutes is it's not just about the distance and the mileage, it's about timing your drive. So that being said, be sure that you subscribe to the channel because I release new videos every single week and I break down different neighborhoods, school systems, commute times, and all the details that you need to know before you decide where to live. The next thing that I feel like is worth mentioning is when it comes to regrets, people sometimes regret how much they end up spending on things like property taxes and insurance here in the Austin area. So not having a state income tax sounds absolutely awesome, which Texas doesn't have a state income tax. That being said, you definitely see an increase that makes up for it when it comes to your property taxes. So income taxes are lower, but property taxes are considerably higher when compared to other areas like California. In the Austin area, across Hayes, Williamson, and Travis County, you're gonna see property tax rates around the 2% mark. When you add flood and wind and hail insurance for your house, then it really does start to add up. Now, insurance isn't as crazy here in the greater Austin area as some places like coastal communities that are more prone to things like hurricanes or more fire-prone areas, but it's definitely something that you want to consider and factor in when you're moving to the Austin area. Kind of joking, but an added bonus of the increase in hail coverage, wind and hail for that matter, is, we have multiple properties here in Austin, me and my wife, and we actually got 2 new roofs over the past year or so because of fairly small hailstorms, but they caused enough damage that was reportable to insurance to where we got new roofs on both of those properties, and that really added the lifetime to that roof on both of those houses and avoided us just normal wear and tear damage to where we'd have to replace the roof sooner. So a little bit of a hidden bonus there, and all we had to pay was our deductible, so it was pretty affordable. So let's break it down into numbers that are easy to understand. Let's just use an example of a $500,000 home. At about 2%, as the tax rate for the property taxes, you're looking at about $10,000 a year, and then you're gonna be adding about $2,000 to $3,000 on top of that, and that could be even higher if you need things like flood insurance for your mortgage. So a pro tip is to definitely consult your agent and your insurance agent to make sure that you're getting an accurate monthly payment, not just thinking about what the mortgage amount itself is going to be. So this next one's kind of a fun one for me, but Austin's admittedly not the same as other big metropolitan cities like Los Angeles or New York or Chicago. It's not the same, and it doesn't really try to be. We don't have a professional NBA team, NFL team, or MLB team for that matter. The public transportation is honestly a little bit lacking. It's mostly just buses. We do have a rail system, but depending on where you live, it's not really utilizable yet. But Project Connect is set to start running around 2032, 2033, I think the last time I checked. So that should really improve the public transit system, but it's just not quite up to par with other metropolitan areas quite yet. And there's no world-class aquariums or zoos like you'll find in cities like Los Angeles or even Dallas or Houston. So I say that to say this. Here's what we actually do have, which I think is honestly a little bit better. It might be biased because I'm a local, but I absolutely love the city for a lot of reasons. And one of those things is the culture behind Austin FC. Now, I'm an Austin FC fan, and we've got a really fun and exciting culture around the soccer club here. And we've also got things like the Longhorn football, which that culture in itself is a completely subsect of Austin, and it's really, really fun to go to the local UT football games and things like that, go tailgating, go to the bowl games. It's just really, really fun to be a part of something that seems bigger than yourself. We've also got the Round Rock Express, which is minor league baseball. We've got the Stars in Cedar Park, which is our minor league hockey team. So regardless of what your preference is on sport, or if you just like sports in general, there's definitely still a lot of options, even though we don't have those, NFL teams, the MLB teams, the NBA teams. And in San Antonio, we've got the Spurs, so it's not that far of a drive if you want to get behind something like an NBA team. So the next thing that we really do excel and stand out in when it comes to the Austin area is just the outdoor lifestyle and the natural beauty that you're surrounded by. It's going to be in just about every video that you see on the Austin area, but it's definitely worth mentioning still. We've got things like Barton Springs Pool, which is a year-round pool, outdoor, natural, spring-fed, that you can utilize. We've got paddleboarding and kayaking and fishing and rock climbing. Austin really is an outdoor city at its heart. So I like to think of Austin as kind of a small, big town. It's got the small town charm, it's got the small town vibe, but it still has the big city conveniences, entertainment, and opportunities. Now this next one kind of ties into the insurance, but it's definitely a regret worth mentioning that I've seen people fall victim to. Either they didn't talk to their agent, they didn't talk to their insurance provider, or they just didn't understand the flood zones themselves. So it's really, really important to partner with somebody and work with somebody who really understands the ins and outs of the flood zones here in Austin, because Austin and Central Texas is frankly quite prone to flooding. And it's not every single area, but you definitely need to know the areas that you want to avoid and what areas to kind of focus on. So a pro tip that I give my clients here when they're relocating is, even if you don't need flood insurance, it might be worth at least exploring the option of getting flood insurance if you're in a low-lying area or you're right on the border of a flood zone, just for peace of mind and to make sure that your asset's protected in the event that the flood zone does move a little bit out of the mapped area. For example, I live in Onion Creek, and hundreds of homes were bought out because they had the flood zones mapped incorrectly. And there were tons of houses that flooded, and the city actually had to buy them out at fair market value. But those people ended up having to relocate because they built a home or they moved into a home that was in an area that should have been zoned as a flood zone but wasn't. So the next regret that I kind of want to talk about, and I think is something to really, really consider, is Austin's big and a lot of people move here and it can be overwhelming and they don't really get plugged into their scene or their vibe or their people. So it's really important when you get here to make sure that you say yes to a lot of things. There's no single scene here in Austin. There's the tech scene, the music scene, the restaurant scene, there's the dog people, there's fishermen, and there's wakeboarding. There's just so many different things to do in Austin that you kind of need to pick a few and just go out and do them, because chances are if you do the things that you already enjoy doing, you're gonna get plugged into your scene, your tribe, your people a lot quicker than if you just kind of sit around and get overwhelmed by all the opportunity. Another great way to kind of get plugged into the social life here is to join local Facebook groups. I actually manage a Facebook group for my neighborhood, and it's really kind of given the community an opportunity to connect and build a closer, stronger relationship. And those types of Facebook groups exist in just about every single neighborhood or suburb in the greater Austin area. Also, do things like get involved in volunteer groups or nonprofit organizations. That's a great way to give back to the community that you've moved to and also meet people that are like-minded. So the overarching tip here is you won't regret Austin if you get plugged into your scene. So get out there, go have some fun, and start taking advantage of all this amazing city has to offer. So ultimately, how do you avoid making the same mistakes and having the same regrets that other people have had in the past? The first tip is connect with somebody who loves this city, loves the area, and knows everything about it, is a local expert that can help you match your lifestyle and what you want to zip codes and neighborhoods, not just finding a house online and falling in love with the finishes. Now, if you want nature and space, a place like Dripping Springs or Driftwood or even Kyle or Buda might be the best match for you. Now, in juxtaposition, if you want, the urban landscape and the urban lifestyle, then you might want to consider something closer to South Lamar, South Congress, or even Mueller or the Domain. Want really cool, established neighborhoods with kind of historic homes? Then you might want to consider something like Hyde Park, Tarrytown, or even Barton Hills. waterfront luxury, then you're definitely gonna wanna look at the Westlake Hills, Steiner Ranch, areas like that where you can get really, really good schools and you can get waterfront access and even private docks. If you're specifically focused on schools, make sure and subscribe because I'm going to be releasing a deep dive into the schools across the greater Austin area and what you need to know, areas to focus on, and things that you might want to avoid if schools are your primary focus. So don't just pick what you hear is popular. Focus on your lifestyle, focus on the concessions you're willing to make when it comes to commute time, and really focus on those areas that actually match your needs, not just what you see on Instagram or TikTok or one of the areas that you saw and you visited for 1 or 2 nights during Austin City Limits Music Festival or South by Southwest. If you want to learn more about the different areas across Austin, then you can text RELO to the number on your screen and I'll send you a free copy of my Austin area relocation guide. It's got a lot of cool facts, it's got places to visit, it's got stats on different neighborhoods, and we can always connect one-on-one to come up with a game plan to where we can tailor a strategy that actually suits your needs to make sure that you make a smart move, not just a move. And call or text me. I make these videos so that I can hear from you. I'd love to connect, I'd love to hear from you, and I'm more than happy to do a one-on-one Zoom or a phone call where we can custom tailor a plan with a real strategy to make sure that you make a smart move to the city of Austin. So I've helped a ton of people relocate to the greater Austin area and absolutely love it and thrive here. But I've also helped a lot of people that didn't have a game plan ahead of time sell their property after they've lived here for just a couple of years and either move across town to an area that better suits their needs, or maybe even move out of the area altogether because they just didn't like their experience here. Ultimately, you only regret making a decision when you didn't know what you didn't know. So let's create a game plan for you that makes this the best move of your life, not a regret that you're gonna talk about over brunch and mimosas in a year or 2.